Welcome back to the Sikhana podcast. I'm Akam. I'm here with Mark Haney.
Great to be here, Akam.
Mark, quick background on you. Some like just for people who don't know who you are.
So, quick background is I grew up in the Sacramento region, Roseville specifically. I now live in Loomis. We have a family compound, so I have my kids and grandkids and everybody's out there on the property. A little place that we call Haneyville. It's love for us. For a living, my background is I started off in video stores. A little before your time. I had a dozen video stores in Sacramento. I pivoted to security cameras. And now I operate something called the Growth Factory. And the Growth Factory is an entrepreneurial development group with an accompanying venture capital fund, and we invest into startups in the Sacramento region.
So would you qualify yourself as like an angel investor type of thing?
Yeah, I started off as an angel investor. So what we do now with our fund is we invest like an angel investor, but we're a venture capital fund. So it's very similar.
Okay. Did you have any mentors growing up or getting into that? Like, did you have anyone to help you through that?
No, I sort of stumbled into venture capital. I sold 4 out of my 5 security companies in 2010. Still have one. My main company actually we're the largest video security provider to casinos. So you name a casino, they've got our cameras. So that's my brother-in-law runs that business. So I was like going to dabble a little bit. So I started a podcast. I'm wearing my Mark Haney Show shirt, and I began angel investing and decided that we wanted to have this. I had this vision of millionaire business partners in my backyard that all love each other. And if we all work together, we can help each other and help Sacramento win. And so I was doing that as an angel investor, and I had this backyard party at my old house. And right after that, COVID hit. And so we put everything on pause. And so I had a background in angel investing, and we put the angel investing on pause for a little bit and said, wait a minute, let's get this out of my backyard and let's make it the collective backyard of all of Sacramento. And so we're building something called the Backyard Advantage, the most connected community in the world for local entrepreneurs. And it's based around this culture of love, right? So we have, between me and the Growth Factory, we've got like 100 plus portfolio companies, 100 plus investors, and we're all working together, almost like a club, to try to help Sacramento startups and Sacramento small businesses.
So helping all these companies start up, is there any common thing that you see in these companies that are it's kind of like, okay, maybe you shouldn't do that, that's kind of like a pitfall? Or is there one common thing, a few common things that you see?
Well, nobody builds a truly great company alone. And I think with small business specifically, you see people trying to go it alone. And really nobody's good at everything. We need to have loyal teammates, maybe co-founders in many cases. So one of the mistakes I see is people trying to do it more themselves when really they need to get started with a founding team, which you need somebody who's good at sales and marketing, somebody who understands the product, somebody who understands business finance at some level. And typically that's not all the same person.
How would you go about finding that? Is that be LinkedIn? Was that how would you go about finding those parts?
Well, for me, my brother and I were business partners in our security companies. The business partners that I have in the Growth Factory I just started talking it up, right? So if you have a great idea, so many people, they keep that idea to themselves, right? They're like, oh, it's my private little idea. Well, that's okay maybe at the beginning, but if you can turn that into like a dream, like me with my 100 millionaire business partners in my backyard that all love each other. I started talking about that. Guess what? I attracted partners to help me. If I would have been keeping that to myself, I'd still be just an angel investor. Now I've got a fund with business partners and lots of investors. We have partnerships with like the Sacramento Kings, City of Roseville, City of Rockland, El Dorado County, a lot of corporations around town. And if I'm keeping it to myself, I don't have those partners.
Is there anything in your journey, any failure that kind of just was that turning point that was like, okay, from here I kind of have to just build up? Was there any part of that in your journey?
Well, I think in my journey, I owned the video stores, and then we loaned a guy some money. So we had these 12 video stores, and this person that was going through a lawsuit wanted to borrow some money to fund his lawsuit. And it was kind of what felt like kind of make a quick buck type thing. We took some of our money, drew down on a couple lines of credit, loaned it to this person that owned this video security company. But it was more pro video at the time, stuff like the stuff you're using here, but more like broadcast. And he was in a lawsuit with Panasonic, and so we loaned him a little bit of money, and he couldn't pay us back.
Okay.
And we loaned him a little bit more, and he couldn't pay us back. He's going through this lawsuit, and we're trying to help him fund his lawsuit. Anyway, he lost the lawsuit with Panasonic. So what are we going to do? We're out all this. It ended up being a lot of money for us. And so out of the bankruptcy, we ended up getting this company that he had. It was a smaller company, but we took that company and we began to grow it and focus on video security, like security cameras.
Okay.
But the mistake that I made, I think, was I don't know that I had confidence in myself. And I had confidence in being a video store guy, right? That's kind of like retail. And my dad had owned a TV shop when I was a kid, so I was used to electronics. But now we had built this company, and it had gotten quite a bit bigger. And so I had hundreds of employees. And I think at some level, we had to say 50, 75 in one company, 100 in the other. And I think I got imposter syndrome. Because I was young. I was in my, young, not compared to you, but compared to today, I was probably in my early 30s and have 100 plus people, working for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of lost some of my confidence. And when I got over that, it was huge. When I finally found my voice and began leading my team, it was a lot more effective. We grew the company a lot bigger. We ended up with 5 companies.
So how did you find
hundreds and hundreds of employees?
How'd you find that confidence then? Was that just experience?
A baby step, just one baby step, take another baby step, and it's like, it actually works pretty well instead of relying on other people. Well, here's what sort of happened. We were doing about 35 million in sales, and which is a lot in our video security company, and our video stores were, video stores that didn't last forever. We still had them going, but they were just sort of there, making a little bit of money, but I was kind of juggling from upstairs, you know what I mean, versus in the trenches with my teammates. And the truth is in the trenches. You can find all the answers in the trenches. Instead, I was sort of managing from the press box, if you will, because I had fear at some level, and because I didn't think I had time to get in and understand all the nuances of everything that we were doing. I was utilizing people to do that for me. And I realized the reason I was doing it that way because I had fear. Anyway, I ended up having a group of people employees walk out because we weren't making the right decisions. Okay. And the decisions that I was making were from the press boxes. And so they left. I got down in the trenches, gained more confidence, found my voice, and ultimately we built 5 companies, a few $100 million in sales. And it was a much better company once I got out of my own way or lost some of that fear.
Yeah. Are there any trends that you look for specifically in companies besides, obviously you mentioned the having a team? Are there any trends or anything that you look for in companies before investing in them?
Absolutely.
What are those?
First thing I look at is who's the founder, who's the founding team? Okay. Because realistically, when we're investing into small businesses, into startups, there is 100% chance that those startups are going to pivot, right? They're going to need to be able to adapt, right? And think on their feet and that kind of thing. And it can be really, really difficult. In fact, it's always really, really difficult. So I look in a founding team for sure to start, and I look for commitment level. Okay. I look for humility, which has a lot to do with coachability or ability to learn. And I look for authenticity, because I don't want to invest into somebody who's kind of a phony. Those kind of people are kind of a turnoff, and they have a harder time leading other people when they're not very believable. So those are probably the 3 things: commitment, humility, and authenticity, and how well those teams sort of gel together.
Okay. I was going to ask you, the kind of answer is the underappreciated qualities within founders and those types of people. So those are the 3 that you say? Those
are the things that I don't know that they're underappreciated. I think a lot of times we look at how sexy the product is, right? Oh, look at this cool product. Look at the great stuff it does. Look at this artificial intelligence and, all these things. Well, the one thing that I think is underappreciated is revenue,
Yeah.
right? Right, sales. There's no problem more sales won't fix. A lot of times people want to build a real fancy product, but getting it sold is a whole different story. If
Yeah.
nobody's going to buy it and pay you money for it, then the product isn't going to go anywhere. And so I think a lot of founders make the mistake of building cool stuff and forget about, oh, well, I better have people that want to buy it and the ability to, get those, those products into the hands of those people so they do buy it.
Do you have a number of how many companies that you're currently working with?
Well, we were invested financially into 65 with the Growth Factory, and I think I got invested into 50 or so myself prior to that. Some of those have sold. A couple have gone out of business. But so let's say it's 100. But we help entrepreneurs and small businesses through the city of Rockland, through the city of Roseville, through the Sacramento Kings, through a lot of events and things that we do. We've helped thousands of small businesses, but we're really focused on our fund on like 65 right now.
Yeah. So, are there any lifestyle things specifically that you do to manage all these things in your life? I mean, is there, for example, Brandon Banks, someone came on first episode I ever did, and he talked about the importance of organization, and he would clear his inbox every day. He had 3 screens for all his companies and all that. What do you do specifically for your lifestyle to maintain?
Okay, so I have kind of a unique process, and I think of it as an advantage, right? I'm always trying. I was like growing up, I was the small guy on the football team. How do I turn that into advantage? I better be faster or hit harder or throw. I was a quarterback, throw the football better, whatever. And so you got to develop your advantage. And my advantage today is that I get up at 3:15 every morning.
Wow.
And I begin to think about what's important to me, and that ultimately I think about what I'm grateful for, what I'm trying to accomplish in my life. I visualize these business partners in my backyard. I visualize my family compound being the most magical place on the world outside of Disneyland, right? So I have these almost like secret friends that they're my manifestations or my dreams. And I use that time to get myself in the right zone so I have an effective day. I think about what I got to do today, what's going to make today a perfect day. And then at 5:20, I leave for yoga. Then at 9:30, I do CrossFit. I'll mix in a meeting in between there. And then I've got a meeting or something here and there throughout the day. But I try not to do too much myself. And I try to get teammates to help, do all the things that I don't want to do. So I do a lot of, I guess, my wife says I'm the laziest man in America, but I like to delegate.
Yeah. So you spend 2 hours manifesting.
Well, I get up at 3:15, and by 4, I'm, I've been thinking about things. I'm looking at my screen that has what I'm supposed to be thinking about on there, and I'm drinking a cup of coffee, and then by 4 o'clock, I'm, in my zone and thinking. And I take a shower at 5, and so 4 to 5. It's really 4 to 5 is my kind of my main time. My first 45 minutes is like getting myself a little bit woke up.
Do you journal and stuff?
I type things into Evernote, so I don't like journal everything. I have gone through that process, and I think it can be effective. I have a little digital note thing on my phone called Evernote, and so if I have any idea, I just type it in there. So I sort of do, but I don't like jot down what I did all day and all that kind of stuff.
Okay,
I've tried that.
Is there anything that separates, coming back to entrepreneurs, separates good entrepreneurs from just great ones? People that you love to work with versus just people that, okay, these people are going the right direction. Is there anything that separates those two?
I think a lot of the great ones, they think about doing something that most people might think is impossible.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people, they set off into their career or they start a business and they're just trying to create a lifestyle. I just need to get this thing profitable so that I can be the boss, which is not bad. But the great ones, they think a little bit bigger. They think about, how can I change the world? How can I have an impact on society that's bigger? When you do that, there's people that doubt you in many cases because you're trying to do something that maybe nobody's ever done before or that most people might think is impossible. But really, unless you think big or different enough, you're not going to be one of the great ones. You might be good, you might be solid, but you're not going to be one of the greats.
Yeah. Have you done HR, hiring people,
Yeah.
that type of thing? What do you look for specifically in people that you hire?
I guess it probably depends on the position, but I like to do our hiring based upon I guess culture fit.
Okay.
So is this the type of person that is a good fit for our team?
That team, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's super important. Are they going to fit in their role from a culture standpoint? And a lot of that is just, asking them, getting to know them a little bit.
Okay.
So, yeah. And over the years, I've done a lot of hiring. I'm doing less now because we don't have as many employees today in the growth factory. But in the companies that I've had where I've had a lot of employees, I think it's really important to understand their hopes and dreams.
Okay.
Right. So if I understand what your dream, if I was looking at coming on board with me, I would want to know what you want to do with your life. And I almost put on this like dream manager hat. If I'm the dream manager, I want to help you get your dream. Mm-hmm. Of course, I have my dream, but if you come on board with me, I still want you to get your dream.
Yeah.
So how do our dreams intersect? How can be a part of my thing be a part of your thing? So I'm always looking for that. Hey, we both win, right? It's a win-win. And so I'm helping you manage your dream as well.
Okay.
And a lot of times people don't know exactly what they want, but I try to dig that out of them, whether it be in the interview or in the process of working together. I want to know what makes them tick, what they want to do in their life.
So for people pitching to you, because people pitch to you a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are there anything specific, qualities or things that they could do preparation wise that when people are looking for investments or funding or angel investors, those types of things, like would help them out, I guess you could say?
Yeah, I think one of the things that happens with people that are pitching, it has that, it almost, of course, be prepared. There's some basic things that you want to do, but I think the one thing that is maybe the underappreciated piece is to come in and hit it off with the person you're talking to, right? To me, in that case, let's say, or my teammates, if they're pitching to us as a group, but to come in and hit it off with us at some level, to understand us. And if you just come in and start selling and not listening at some level, it can be a little bit of a turnoff, and you're going to get some no's if you just come in and start telling me how great you are without understanding what we look for. I mean, you're great at asking questions and understanding where people are coming from. So you'd probably be really good at pitching as well, because understanding what does the growth factory invest into, and what are we interested in? And those are the kinds of things. Just getting to know us and getting conversations going, those are the things that sort of break the ice.
Yeah.
And they're really helpful.
So like at our school, what we're doing, we got this new scholarship. It's a $2,500 scholarship for people who want to start their own business. And what you have to do is they'll get a panel of people, probably entrepreneurs and successful business people in the area, and they'll have that panel and you have to pitch your idea to them. And these are people that you don't know, right? So in terms of that, if I'm coming up there pitching my idea, how do I familiarize myself with those people? I mean,
yeah, that might be a little bit difficult in a pitch contest. I don't know if that's a pitch contest. One of the things that goes into every good pitch is a story about the problem that you're solving with your business.
Okay.
So something that they can relate to. I think you want to hit it off with them at the beginning, but if you have 3 minutes to pitch your product, there's not a lot of time for you to ask them questions.
Yeah.
So you have to assume that you just need to be friendly and a likable person, and then start sharing the problem as you see it in a relatable way. If your product is a piece of software or something like that, it probably solves a problem. So imagine yourself and you're trying to figure this stuff out, or your teammates, your accounting people are trying to figure this out, and they get stuck and they get delayed, and it takes a long time, or it's frustrating, whatever. And then you can talk about how you dealt with that problem potentially, and now you developed a solution that helps them to I guess get through that problem much more efficiently and much more effectively, so that they can I don't know, focus on other things in their life
Okay.
or in their business.
Okay.
So typically people forget to identify the problem in a relatable way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so building those relations and having them actually like understand this is a real problem, kind of getting it into that common sense where they'll kind of relate to it.
And it does, and it gives you the credibility to show that you are kind of an authority or a thought leader in that realm. If you're trying to solve a problem that for coffee shops, here's the problem that you saw when you were working at Starbucks. Yeah. Whatever. That's like if you're starting a business just because it sounds fun, it should solve a problem or make the world better in some ways. So talk about what's going on in the world today that's not as good as it ought to be, and how you experience that. And if you have personal knowledge of that, or if it's emotionally personal to you, maybe you have somebody that had an illness and now you're working on some kind of therapy that solves that illness and it's close to home for you. That's a compelling story. That helps me understand your commitment level.
Okay. Coming back to your business, so you started that whole security thing by yourself, and then you obviously got other people with it, but you started that?
Well, so what happened is my brother and I owned the video stores.
Okay.
And so he's my little brother. We had newspaper routes together as a little kid, and then got video stores going, and then we loaned the guy some money, couldn't pay us back. So instead of getting the money paid back, we got this little company. Okay. And so it was just our company. We didn't have investors or anything like that. So he and I recruited like a lot of our high school friends and people that had worked at our video stores, and just people that we thought would be good in our business. We recruited them, and then so we built a company that sold security cameras all over the country. But we were based out of Rockland, and we had one of our companies was based out of Roseville.
Okay,
but yeah, it was just me and him, and then we put presidents in charge of each company.
So in terms of scaling, were there any strategies that you did to kind of get to that point that you're in now? Or?
Well, I think get one thing right. So whether it be video stores, let's say you're open up a video store or a coffee shop, kind of a retail, get one right, figure out your differentiation and tap into that, and then figure out a way to duplicate that. So instead of going and hiring 10 salespeople right off the bat, let's get one salesperson working the products in a number of customers' hands. Okay, it's working. Now I can go hire a bunch of salespeople or whatever, or put together a marketing plan and start spending more money. But I would wait to overspend on growth until you really know you have something.
Okay. Nowadays, social media is insane, especially for marketing. How important? And I know I talked to you earlier, a few weeks back, and talked about the Haney show specifically, and how important social media was for that. And you said, that's for you delegate that. In general, in terms of businesses, how important how much do you value social media?
I think social media is very important, and it's more important for some businesses than others. It's very important for all businesses. But I think if you're a direct-to-consumer type of product, you're going to need digital marketing. It's big time. Yeah. In venture capital, so I have 100 plus investors, and I think a digital media presence or some social media presence helps at some level. But we're looking for I'm in 65 companies, 100 investors. It's not like I need everybody in the world to be, finding me on Instagram or, YouTube or anything. It's one strategy. You look at someone like Gary Vee, it's been really good for him. He's got a digital marketing company. He's also an investor, but he's built a lot of things through his digital, building his personal brand. But most venture capital companies don't really have somebody like Gary Vee, or even someone like me, small time guy that has a personal brand that they've built. So I think it can be helpful. But right now in the Sacramento region, there's not that many other venture capitalists, but what I'm trying to do is uncover more investors, because a lot of people don't understand this asset class as well. So we want to sort of get the word out there that entrepreneurship is cool for a lot of people, not for everybody, but that you can actually build a business here in Sacramento and get venture capital here in Sacramento. And there's great companies to invest into here in Sacramento.
So being that guy that people come to and they try to pitch their pitch and they want everything, they want to be a part of your team. People come to you. How important And specifically, I know I want to talk about this because I've been through so many things with this, and I've messed this up a few times, and it's led to bad things. First impressions, coming, the shake of the hand to the elevator pitch. What do you look for? Especially, let's go elevator pitch, for example. Those 60 seconds, those 30 seconds where you have, what do you look for? Have you ever been pitched in an elevator? You probably have.
In an elevator? I have a couple times, but I can't really remember anything specifically. But if I'm getting your question right, what do I look for if I'm meeting somebody and whether I want to take the conversation further and learn more about their opportunity? It really is this somebody I would want to go out and have a cold beverage with? It's like that. As simple as that. When I hang out, like if you're in high school, right? If this guy came up and said, "Hey, we're going over to the drive-in or whatever," would I get in the car and go? It's like I want to invest in the people that I want to have in my backyard and I want to be buddies with, that I trust, that seem cool. Because realistically, there's some people that are just like super brilliant people, but they have a hard time communicating to other people as well. We all know those people, and doesn't mean that they won't get there, but they might not be there yet. I think every team needs somebody that's got a little bit of charisma, somebody who can make the molecules move, because building a business is hard. Getting investors is really difficult. Getting employees to come want to work for you for cheap if you're a startup is hard. Getting customers to buy your stuff is hard. And so there's a likability factor that is almost intangible that some people have it and some people don't. But, why you're drawn to your friends, and I know why I'm drawn to my friends, and it might be a little bit different, but some of these things are universal. Yeah, so if taking risks, you obviously have to take a lot. Putting your own money in the growth factory's money, how do you evaluate those risks in terms of looking at them from an aspect of, I don't want to fall into that, how do you evaluate those risks? Well, when I was doing it with simply my money as an angel investor, you're doing it with your money. So I sold my companies, got a little bit of money, maybe I'll do a little, you invest in different things, do a little angel investing. I basically did the would I want to go out and have a beer with this guy test or gal? Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. If it, so I'm invested personally in stuff like Bennett's Restaurant. Brian Bennett, really good dude. So I invested into him. Other people are the same ways. Like I could go through some of the investments. Some of them are more like Main Street type companies, and others are tech companies. But it was all that same test. Would I want to go out and have a beer with this guy or not? Today, with the Growth Factory, we're managing some of my money, but we have other people's money invested. So I'm managing a pool of money with, a lot. We don't invest into stuff like a restaurant or something like that. We want something that's going to get a great return on investment for our investors. And so we have a team evaluate the size of the market and the scalability of the product, the competition, the financials, a lot of that kind of stuff. A little bit of due diligence goes into where we invest. And I utilize my team and my network of our collective network of people that have industry knowledge in a specific area. And we make an evaluation on that. And we might make a small bet on something. And then that's kind of our approach, is we make smaller bets at the beginning and then we double down on the winners. So we might give somebody $50,000 for as a small bet, and then if they kind of don't go anywhere with the company, then that's it. Hopefully they go somewhere someday. But and then we have somebody else who's really in a growth mode. Oh, we want to put more money in, so we'll track the winners and put bigger investments into the winners. Yeah, networking you touched on. I want to get to that point because of how important that is. And I've been told so many times, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Specifically for people who, let's say, are coming out of college, or let's say don't have many, connections. Because once you get connections, you can use those to get other people, and doors start to open up. If you had, like, let's say one person, like your let's just say your parents, that's all you had, how would you go about getting connections? Well, it's interesting because I'll say two things to that. What you are doing right here, like, you wouldn't know me if you didn't have a podcast. Yeah. Fair statement? Yeah. Okay. So I didn't know what I was going to do with my life after selling my companies and kind of dabbling and all that. Started a podcast, and I did exactly what you're doing. I got, who are the people in the community? You had Steve Stossen connected us, and you've had influential people. You mentioned Brandon Brown. Brandon Banks. Brandon Brown's another guy. He's a really successful guy too, that you could consider at some level. But I started just interviewing them, wanting to share the stories of how winners think. I had Dale Carlson, the sleep train guy. So I had Uriah Faber was my first guest. He's a MMA superstar, the California Kid. Second guest, I think, was Phil Oates. A lot of people have heard of the Buzz Oates Company. He runs that. Kevin Nagle is my third guest. I just started going, who are the most influential people in Sacramento? See if I can get them on my show. Yeah. And I did, and I helped them share their stories about how to win on my show. And I thought that would be good for helping the community. I didn't have a product. I didn't know where I was going with it, but I built a network. And so when I eventually decided, I'm going to do this Growth Factory thing, well, it was good to know all those people, right? It was like helpful. I didn't know it at the time, how helpful it would be, but it was helpful. And then the other thing that I would say, so a podcast is not a bad way to go. But you got to tap into what you're good at. So in high school, I was the guy that threw the big parties with hundreds of people. I'm a C student from Oakmont High School, voted most likely to be a bum. Mostly my high school girlfriends voting, but it was, I was the party dude, right? I was not like into drugs and stuff like that, but I was into throwing good parties and, having a good time. And then I opened up the video stores, and that was basically an extension of like all my high school buddies just came to my video store party. And then when I built the security camera companies, it was basically throwing a party. So I feel like just throwing a party that people want to come to is an event if you have that skill. Yeah. If you don't have that, find somebody that does and start throwing what your version of a party. It could be a video store. It could be some kind of networking event. It could be a security camera company, but that's a great way to meet people, is just get them excited about the kind of stuff that you're working on, because you never know, and start talking it up. And next thing you know, there's other people that kind of believe the same way that you do and want to help.
So when you were talking about your podcast specifically, reaching out to those people, how did you do that? Was that email? Was that you knew someone who got to that? How did you reach out?
So I had this guy, we started a charitable organization called Allegiant. In fact, at Del Oro High School, that the baseball field, it's called Allegiant Field. Yep, that's came from our nonprofit that we started. There was a guy that was helping me with that, who used to work for the Sacramento Kings, and he was really connected with leadership of Sacramento. And I was thinking about starting a radio show with me and my daughter to do real estate, because she's a real estate agent, real estate broker at a significant company that she sold, but she still does that. So her name is Ashley. And so I was like, how do you get I was talking to this guy that knew about the radio stuff, and I'm like, hey, how do you get a radio show? And he's like, you want a radio show? And I'm like, well, I've thought about it. It's like he starts texting people right there to help me out. Next thing you know, I'm talking about having my own radio show. I barely even knew what a podcast was. And so I get connected. I'm on Sports 1140, now Sacktown Sports, KHTK. I started there, and we decided, instead of making it a real estate show, let's make it an entrepreneurial show, because it was more authentic to me, since I was into entrepreneurship and had built businesses, and I was already invested into a few businesses at that time. So totally random.
Yeah, going back to the podcast that you talked about, having the MMA fighter and all these people. What's the most memorable guest that you've had?
The one story that comes to mind is Dale Carlson. He was the founder of the Sleep Train. Yep. They built it to, I think, 100 plus stores, ended up selling to Mattress Firm. And, he was really successful. He still is really successful. And he's actually helps me with the Growth Factory at some level. And he has Carlson Center at Sac State for entrepreneurship. He's a very special person. Wow. So he comes on my show, right? His first year, he's like probably the show guest number 10. And so I'm asking him about his business. And so and he'd already sold Sleep Train by that time, but I'm like, so tell me about, building your team. And he said, okay, well, let me tell you this story. So we got up to like 50 stores and wanted to do some more growth. And so I called all my employees together, and I told them, hey guys, there's new owners of the sleep train, and they're all like, what? You sold the sleep train? You sold it? And he's like, the new owners want to give you this gift, and it was this little like box. And he said, go ahead and open that box right now. So they opened it up, and in that box was a mirror. And he said, you see that mirror? Look into it. You're looking at the new owners of the sleep train. He created a company that was his and his wife's, and he gave a large chunk to his company, created an employee-owned company, right? It's called an ESOP, Employee Stock Ownership Program. He gave a huge chunk of his company to these companies, to these employees. What happens after that? It grows to like hundreds of stores, and they sell to the mattress firm, and a bunch of people became millionaires that were his employees. But to me, that was the most clever story about how he was so unselfish about giving up a big piece of his company without them having to pay any money for it. And it was just really inspiring for me.
You have so much knowledge. Steve talked about it. Books and how he always read. Do you read books?
I do. I'm now doing Audible. I'm listening to books a lot. Yeah.
Is there any book that you would recommend to people who want to get into entrepreneurship, who want to, I guess, 10x their mindset?
Well, there is a book called 10X, which is good. So it's a Grant Cardone book, which is an inspirational book. There's Relentless, which is really inspiring. But in terms of getting into entrepreneurship, there's a book called 0 to 1. Okay. It talks a lot about how hard it is to get from zero, starting from 0 to 1.
First million,
Yeah, but I think one of the books that I think would relate to everybody, because not everybody's cut out for entrepreneurship. One of the things that I see in life with other people and successful people and people that are maybe struggling to be successful more, and it's kind of the opposite of the 10X rule, which is kind of interesting. Grant Cardone and the 10X rule says just do 10 times more than everybody else, outwork them and all that. And there's a lot of validity to that if you're working on the right stuff. There's another book called Essentialism, which is the disciplined pursuit of less. So actually do less stuff, which is kind of like, okay, how do you contrast those two thoughts? Well, in Essentialism, they say, pick less things to focus on instead of, being everything to everybody and just being busy. Cut those things out of your life, get to the basics and do them over and over, but be really good at cutting things out of your life. Get really good at saying no in a way that, doesn't turn people off, but finding ways to carve things out. And so I think that's true for who you hang around. If you're going to get in the car and go down to the Frosty with just anybody, okay, you got to be a little bit selective, okay? Otherwise, you've wasted your time. So I think there's a lot of things that people do in their life that is a complete waste of time and may not lead anywhere. And if you're hanging around or spending time with that kind of environment, it's a big, it is really a hindrance to your success. It holds you back, and you might not even realize that it does because you feel so busy. But, well, you know what? You need to cut all that stuff out of your life. And so it's easy to look at if you step back from it and go, what did I do today that really ties well to that thing I'm trying to manifest? Oh, some of the stuff I did today didn't tie that well to the things I'm trying to manifest. Okay, what can I cut out for tomorrow?
Knowing what you know now with your decades of experience, if you were to go back and start everything over again, how would you approach it differently? How would you look at being an entrepreneur, owning a business different, I guess, with everything that you have now?
I don't know that I would do anything different because I've learned, I've learned through this. So if in some ways my mistakes are part of the character, it's part of, they've humbled me, right? I've become more humble, I think, at some level. And so I don't know that I would change anything, even though I've made mistake after mistake after mistake. Ask my wife.
And last thing, it's been amazing. Last thing is, I always ask everyone this. The last thing I ask everyone is, when will you be happy? When will you retire? Some people say, when they have a legacy. Other people say when their kids are successful. When will you be happy? When will you put everything up?
I don't think I would be happy retired personally. I'm happy having what I'll call some amount of impact.
Uh-huh.
So that means I want to be on a team that's trying to do something important. So I don't need to be the leader. I don't need to be the man. But I like being a part of winning. I like living vicariously through other people that are really driven. I feel like it keeps me young at some level. So I feel like that's what makes me happy. I'm even talking about going back. I coached football back in the day. I'm even talking about going back and coaching some football because I want to do things that are fun, but I'm making an impact with other people. And so I love sports. I like small business. I love spending time with my family. And if I'm giving more than I'm taking from those areas, it makes me feel good about me.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.